Welcome, everybody, to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be back with you again today. I'll tell you, this Trump administration is moving at lightning speed, and I've got plenty to talk about today. I don't know whether I'll get to it all, but I'll get to as much as I can. Got one big thing I really want to get to in a second. But before I do that, let me mention, today is the day. At 4 p.m. today, we're having our panel discussion on the American crisis of the family. The American crisis of the family. Now, we know this is a problem across the board. It is most acute in the black community, but it's happening to pretty much every demographic. The only one that seems to be resisting it, in part because their numbers are fairly small and just beginning to grow, and that is Asians in our country seem to be holding their families together so far. But there is a cultural shift generally that I think will ultimately sweep them into it too, even if not the present generation, the next generation, because it is an agenda that really undermines the family. And so we're going to be discussing that today at 4 p.m., live streaming it here, wherever you're watching me. That's standamerica.us, ewjacksonforamerica.com, here on Facebook. E.W. Jackson SR or E.W. Jackson for America at thecall.org, at Rumble at The Real E.W. Jackson. So basically, go to our website, standamerica.us, and you'll find all the information there on where you can watch the live stream. Now, you'll be able to comment and engage in the discussion with us at comment@standinc.net. We'll be monitoring that email. comment@standinc.net. And so if you have a question, you have a comment, we'll share that with the audience and our panel will respond to it. So I'll be moderating the panel, but this is by way, not just of talking about, oh, woe is me, isn't this terrible? We actually want to deal with what are the solutions? How are we going to break this generational curse that has been working in our country really since the 1960s, frankly, to destroy the most fundamental institution of our society, which is the family? How do we break that generational curse? Well, part of it is breaking the curse of homosexuality and all this gender-bending nonsense. I mean, that's part of it. It's not the only thing, but that simply accelerates and contributes to the degeneration of family because it undermines family as God ordained it and designed it, and it undermines respect for family. And of course, and we're seeing it. The homosexual activist said, this is not going to undermine, talking about same-sex marriage, he used to say, this is not going to undermine the family. This is going to strengthen the family. But look at what has happened since. You have fewer people getting married, more people shacking up. They're getting married much, much later. They're having far fewer children. Well, why not? Because once you say marriage includes two people who can't have children, well, who needs children? And yet, God's first commandment to Adam and Eve was be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. They were supposed to have children. The book of Proverbs says children are a blessing from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is his reward. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. We're supposed to have children. That's why we were created. But the left doesn't see it that way. Children are destroying. We can't have children. This is a terrible world. There's a population control. I mean, they've got all these cockamamie, idolatrous ideas rolling around in their little empty heads that they think they know what's best for the planet and they know what's best for the world and they know the outcome of human history. And all we have to do is just bow down to them, follow them, give them all of our money, and they'll fix everything for us and create a worldwide utopia. Yeah, well, no thanks. I'll take this fallen world with limited power by studio problem that I've got to address. It only lasts about 10 seconds or so, but I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe I've got too much data in my computer, or maybe I need an upgrade or something. But at any rate, so that's today, Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Go to our website, standamerica.us, to figure out how to tune in and watch it live stream. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And by the way, it's being sponsored by the Family Restoration Institute of STAN And if you'd like to help us with that, contribute to that, you can go to our website again, and you'll find that category, the Family Restoration Institute, and you can contribute there to help us build this out. Because this is really the first public forum that we're having on these issues, and we're going to have many, many more of these. But we're also in the process of developing a curriculum that we'll be able to share with Christian schools and organizations and churches on dealing with the issues of family. And I'm not talking about just in fact, I'm really not talking at all about counseling families and married couples in their problems. I mean, at some point we may end up getting to that. What I'm talking about right now is instilling in people the values, the principles, the ideals, and some of this may go to counseling, that make for a healthy family, that make for a family that works. Okay? That's really what we're going to be interested in trying to do, so that young people who don't have that model in their lives can develop a vision for it in their own minds and hearts, and that people maybe who have already had children out of wedlock, or people who haven't gotten married yet but are thinking about doing it, can have in mind some of the principles, and that the Family Restoration Institute would be promoting and promulgating, that they would say, okay, wow, that gives me I better understand what it means to be a husband. I better understand what it means to be a wife. No such thing as two husbands and two wives, by the way. It's husband and wife, father and mother. But I understand better what it means to be a good father, or I understand better what it means to be a good mother. I understand what it means to be a good husband. I understand what it means to be a good wife, and understand something about parenting and about properly raising children and the things to show them, to teach them, to model before them, and so forth. So pray for us and help us in whatever way you can. StandAmerica.us is where you can go to find out about the panel discussion today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, live stream. Looking forward to that. Okay, let me get to an issue that I talked about yesterday and probably ranted about it more than I intended to. And I may end up doing that today, although I've got a number of issues that I need to talk to you about. You know, it was reiterated to me, and I saw articles about it, that Roger Goodell, who I've explained is probably the dumbest man on the planet. He's certainly one of them. I mean, just dumb. Pay that man $50 million and give him a private plane for what? Listen, I would do that job for $5 million. They get $50 million a year. I'd do that job for $5 million a year. And I could do a better job than he does. And I'm not a football expert. But I'd get people around me who understand football better than I do. And I could run the organization. And I could turn the NFL into a gargantuanly more successful organization by playing to America's traditional values instead of being a condescending, pandering, leftist, Marxist, racist who is simply trying to just satisfy the lowest common denominator. That's who. And I'm puzzled about this. Is Roger Goodell really as stupid as I think he is? And I think he probably is. And when I say stupid, by the way, I understand. I know the guy's. I assume he's got an education from somewhere, but I'm talking about wisdom. I'm talking about the wisdom of life. What the president's referring to as common sense. I refer to it as godly wisdom. He's completely lacking in it. I mean, he's a zero. And he's the one who's making these decisions, of course. Somebody else may be advising him, but he's the one who's making these decisions, these ridiculous decisions. He's the one who allowed this flag kneeling nonsense to go on forever. But I also, but in addition to being stupid, being godless, I really believe that Roger Goodell is a product of leftist indoctrination. I think just like Joe Biden, he's around all these people and they're constantly bombarding them with all this Marxist, collectivist, racist condescension and all of this stuff. And they just absorb it and say, yeah, this is what it means to be a good person. What it means to be a good person is I have to condescend to those those people of color, as they like to refer to them, because we know racism in your life. And I didn't grow up in the South. I grew up just north of the Mason-Dixon line in southeastern Pennsylvania. You know, you drive a few miles, you go into the segregated South. While I was growing up, particularly in the 60s. I was born in 1952, so for about the first 15 years of my life, if I'd lived in the South, I'd have experienced something very different than what I experienced in Pennsylvania. But did I ever experience any explicit, overt racism? And the answer is no, except from liberals who were so busy trying to help me that they wanted me to lower my sights. I remember getting a lecture from some very well-meaning white liberals telling us, fellas in junior high school, you know, black people don't do well at the intellectual pursuits. They didn't say it quite that explicitly, but that was the implication because they gathered a group of us. Black people don't do quite as well as at the intellectual pursuits. But there's plenty of work to be done in the trades, carpentry and welding. And look, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. My father was a welder. I'm not great with my hands in fixing things. I don't have the patience for it, frankly. But I was doing very well academically. They didn't care. They didn't care because they felt like, well, you know, you might be an anomaly, but let's get you back in your lane. I mean, that was it's the leftists who think that they're doing you good. I think I may have told you all one time when I was running the radio station up in Boston, and I didn't have any space. Of course, Boston is the land is just impossible to find because, you know, Massachusetts is a very small state, and they're not allowing building, so there's just not much land to do much of anything on because there's not much turnover. But I was looking for land for my tower because I had to move it in order for the radio station to survive at that time. With the technology today, you wouldn't have to move it. I mean, you could piggyback on another tower, but during that time, I needed my own tower. I went to the real estate director for Harvard, which has the biggest property owner in the Boston area, and said, look, I'm looking for some place to put my tower. And they had just all kinds of open spaces at Harvard. And folks, I kid you not. I kid you not. So, you know, a businessman talking to, you know, a fairly high-level official at Harvard. I was able to get in to see him because I, of course, had a Harvard law degree, and that kind of gave me some entree. And I sat down and told him exactly what my situation was and how I was trying to save this radio station, this gospel radio station. And told him what the parameters were, the real estate that I needed in order to put my tower up. And he says to me, rears back, looks at me, you know, smiles, and, you know, says to me, you know, I marched with Dr. King. Folks, I am not kidding you. I am not kidding you. And of course, I sat there thinking to myself, where did that come from? Because I didn't come to talk to him about civil rights. I came to talk to him about my need for land to put a radio tower. And whether Harvard would work something out with me and give me some land for this tower. I mean, I was prepared to pay for it. I was prepared to enter into a lease agreement. So I wasn't looking for a handout. I was a businessman coming in there looking to do a deal. I marched with Dr. King. And I'm thinking to myself, what did I miss? And then he went on to tell me, you know, that he's always been in favor of civil rights. And I'm sitting there, and then it dawned on me. It dawned on me. He had absolutely no intention of helping me at all. But what he was doing was laying the bona fides, his own racial bona fides, and saying to me, I'm not going to help you. Maybe he couldn't, I don't know, but he didn't say that. He just made clear he wasn't going to. But I should not draw any conclusions about his commitment to racial justice. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, what a condescending load of crap. I just rather you tell me, look, Harvard's policies don't allow that, or I don't have the ability to do that, or we don't have any land that we could set aside for that. We have, I mean, whatever. But lecturing me about your civil rights bona fides? So, you know, I know I seem to be far afield. Let me come back to the point. Why in the world, I've now learned that the NFL is going to play, quote unquote, the song, by the way, is called Lift Every Voice. It was written by James Weldon Johnson. It is simply a Christian hymn. Now, it is a Christian hymn that in some ways is you would probably hear only in black tradition, but it's not an old metered Negro spiritual. You know what I mean? I mean, it is a hymn. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. So, I mean, it's just a hymn. But they've taken to calling it the Black National Anthem. And Roger Goodell is going to play the Black National Anthem. Now get this. Are you ready for this one? Everyone is going to be required to stand first to sing the Black National Anthem. And then we will sing the true national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. I'm glad I will not be watching, because it just even thinking about it incenses me. It really does. Because look, folks, there's only one national anthem. One. And the idea of standing up to sing the Black National Anthem? Well, first of all, there is no black nation, as I said yesterday, in America. Yes, there are people in America of African descent, some whose ancestors have been here for hundreds of years, as mine have, some who've come more recently from Africa or the West Indies or what have you. So there are people here whose ancestors are of African of descent, who have African ancestors. But there's no African nation in America. There's no Irish nation in America. There's no Italian nation in America. There's no German nation in America. There's no Japanese nation in America. There's no Indian nation in America. We're one nation. So, and somebody pointed out, one of the commentators says, so, I mean, if other groups have a national anthem, do we have to go through a long line of these other anthems we got to sing before we can get to the one that apparently doesn't matter anymore, which is the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States of America? Now, somebody raised this, and I hadn't thought about this in a while. This is probably some of the thinking. We have to sing the Black National Anthem because the national anthem is racist. Because one of the verses in the national anthem, because, you know, the national anthem has more than one verse. We only sing one verse. But it has, I think it's three verses, maybe four. But one of the verses refers to slavery, but rather obliquely. And they're basically the left, which is always trying to denigrate anything American and trying to denigrate America. Oh, it's a racist song, and John P. Key was a slave owner. Listen, when John P. Key stood on that ship in the harbor at Fort McHenry and watched those British bombs bombing Fort McHenry and flying all around that gigantic flag that was at the tip of that harbor. And when all of the dust settled, that flag was still there, shining brightly, blowing in the breeze. And he had the inspiration for this song. He was not thinking about slavery, and he was not thinking about racism, and he was not thinking about black people. He was thinking about the preservation of our nation, period. That was 1812. Yeah, I think John P. Key, I don't think he wasn't a major slave owner. Did he own slaves? I think history demonstrates that he did or might have. But I mean, get over it. There were people who owned slaves during the slave period. Okay? Now just get over it. I mean, my goodness gracious, is everything that everybody did during that era illegitimate? Well, some would say yes. And so the Declaration's illegitimate and the Constitution's illegitimate and all of it's illegitimate because some of these people own slaves. Well, you know what? Life is a little bit more complicated than that. And I've said before, you know, on that basis, there's not a single person that we honor in history if we could look more deeply at their background, their attitude, their behavior, all the things they did throughout all their lives, who wouldn't likely be disqualified. We say, oh no, because you know what? He kicked the cat when he was 7 years old. You know, or he lit fire to the dog's tail when he was 10. Or whatever. I mean, look, the FBI did a dastardly thing when they surveilled Martin Luther King and tried to get information embarrassing him. And they were absolutely and totally wrong to do that. And another one of those unfortunate black marks on the FBI's record. However, Martin Luther King was no angel. And there's some serious questions to be raised about his personal life. But that does not negate the way in which the man was used to move this nation from a segregated nation which rampant with racial ideology to a nation with a vision of brotherhood and decency toward one another and seeing each other as individuals, content of our character, not the color of our skin. You can't deny that because Martin Luther King's personal life was not pristine. And you have to say the same thing about George Washington, although his life was pretty pristine. You know, Thomas Jefferson's wasn't so much. And it's going to vary. I mean, Alexander Hamilton had some serious issues. John Adams, more of a virtuous type. But it's going to be all over the place. And of course, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. John Adams did not. You start going down that road and you deny people the greatness that God put in them for the particular purposes in which he used them, because the only person who's ever walked the face of the earth who can say, which of you convicts me of sin, is Jesus Christ. And there's nobody else. I mean, John Adams, I just said he was virtuous, but look, John Adams signed the Alien and Sedition Act, which was one of the worst pieces of legislation ever passed in our country's history, in which he was actually having people locked up for speaking against him. There is no one that you can lionize as the perfect specimen. Like I said, I mean, George Washington, who I think is the greatest American figure we've ever produced, had a terrible temper. Very much in control of himself. But brother, once you triggered it, the rage came pouring out. I hate to stereotype, but you know, George Washington had red hair. We always see him with the white wig, but George Washington was a redhead. I said all that simply to say that denigrating the national anthem because you can find something in John P. Key's life to criticize, like he owned slaves, is stupid. It's ridiculous. If that's the big, we have to have the black national anthem because America's national anthem is racist. I tell you, you know what? It's enough to make you want to fight. Because we have this wonderful country. We have very few things that unite us all as one people. And you got these idiot leftists who want to take away the few things we do have. The Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, we can't mention God. The national anthem. Oh, John P. Key was a racist. My goodness. The Constitution. Oh, well, they were slave owners. And the Declaration. So basically, what they really want to do is undermine everything about America that unites us, that causes us to be a cohesive nation with a unifying sense of culture and vision and purpose and commonality of values. They want to take all of that away so they can remake the country. That's really what they're up to. So, and consider this. I said I'd probably spend more time on this than I intended to, but you know what? Let me. So what does it mean to sing two national anthems? Are you really saying that we are two nations? Because if you're saying that, then you're saying black people aren't part of America. We're part of a black nation that happens to be in America. I mean, isn't that the message? I mean, you correct me if it means something else. Why would you sing a separate national anthem if you're not saying these are a separate people, separate nation within our nation? Which means that America's not one, we're two. So one nation is a lie. Indivisibility is a lie. No, we're divided. I'll tell you, I hope that one day I'll be able to watch NFL games with a sense of satisfaction and gratification that it really represents the best of America. But I can't do it now. I just can't do it because I think Roger Goodell has so poisoned it and so perverted it into a political statement of leftist, Marxist, racist condescension that I just can't have any part of it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'll tell you what, though. I don't feel the same emotion singing Lift Every Voice that I feel singing or hearing the national anthem. Because I know that the Star-Spangled Banner is the anthem under which so many have fought and bled and died in sacrifice for our liberty. And I am not in the least bit moved by some stupid Black Lives Matter flag, but I am moved by the red, white, and blue. So just get off it and quit. And you know what? Here's the last thing I'll say about this. Then I do have some time to talk about some other things. I hope the American people somehow communicate to the NFL their displeasure at this. I hope that we stop accepting this stuff and just, yeah. Because look, the NFL makes its money off of us, not the other way around. Do you make any money off the NFL? But if you're a fan, if you buy their memorabilia, if you subscribe to the sports channel, if you go to their games, whatever, they make money off you, not vice versa. If you watch the games and you see the advertisers on the games and maybe occasionally, oh yeah, that's an interesting ad, I think I'm going to check that out. They're making money off you. You're not making money off them. And they ought to hear from the fans. They ought to hear from people who say, listen, get off it. I said, why can't there be a halftime show with gospel music? I mean, we've got some of the greatest gospel singers in the world in our country. I mean, people with magnificent voices and tremendous talent who I think would inspire that crowd, who would bring people to their feet, just have them having a good old-fashioned family time. But, oh, no, we can't do that. We got to have the gangster rapper, and we got to have Beyonce shaking her backside. Because we got to pander to the lowest denominator. You know, what that tells, you know, Jesus said, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil things. He said, a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. And that tells you all you need to know about Roger Goodell and the people around him. They are filthy on the inside. They are corrupt on the inside. They are dirty on the inside. And that's why they produce this stuff. Because it's really what's in their hearts. It's really what they want. Okay, I think I probably said enough about that. Let me get to some good news, because I could care less what happens on Sunday with the Super Bowl, and I hope that changes one day, because I'd love to enjoy the fun and celebrate with other people. But as I said, I am not going to thank you for spitting in my face and reward you for it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what the NFL is doing with this national anthem business, the flag kneeling business. No, thank you. No. It was so spit in my face and tell me it's raining and they ought to thank God for it. No, thank you. But anyway, here's some good news, okay? Let me get to some good news, folks. U.S. Army recruiting numbers are the highest they have been in 15 years. Last month, we have had a breakthrough. Suddenly, young people are enlisting in the military again. Praise God. I'll tell you, praise God. I can just see the morale in the military just going up. And people say, well, why? Because, look, have you ever met somebody, been in an interaction, maybe in some group, and you meet somebody, and maybe you see them more than once, and you just kind of know that person doesn't care for you? Ever had that happen? You maybe don't know why, but you just know it. You know it. Maybe nothing they've actually explicitly said or even done. I guess they call it a vibe these days. Look, we're not stupid. Our military people know that Joe Biden doesn't like them. They know that Democrats don't like them. We know that the Democrat Party is anti-military. They've been that way for decades. And our military people know it. The reason that they pushed all this gender stuff and operating on people and mutilating people and all of this DEI nonsense is because they don't like the military as it's presently constituted. They don't like the traditional values. They don't like honor. They don't like integrity. They don't like courage. They don't like duty. They don't like those things. They want the military to be a reflection of their depravity. Now that's just telling it like it is, folks. That's what they want. They want every institution to be like that. That's what they're doing. They want the schools to be like that. They want the entertainment industry to be like that. They want the corporate world to be, they want everything to reflect their depravity. And the people in the military know it. I tell you, in fact, I didn't talk about this, but in fact, just this past Monday, I went to a promotion ceremony at Norfolk Naval Base for one of my church members who was being promoted to commander. He was being promoted into the ranks of a senior officer in the Navy. Proud of this young man, too. Proud of him. And the equivalent, for those of you, because I don't know Navy rankings as well as I know Army and Marine Corps, because Army and Marine Corps I think are exactly alike. But it's the equivalent of being promoted to lieutenant colonel. That's a big deal. a lieutenant colonel in the Army or the Marine Corps. That's a big deal. And, I just sensed the morale. There's a sense of joyfulness. Nobody mentioned the politics of the moment, but there was a sense of joyfulness. And I've talked to guys because, of course, I live in a military area. I was stationed at Naval Air Station, South Weymouth, but the Norfolk Naval Base is the largest naval base in the world. So, of course, I get military people coming through my church all the time. And I hear these guys sit around and talk. Why are they putting me in a class to teach me how to deal with somebody's sexual issues? I mean, what? They're not liking it. I want to learn how to do my job better. I want to learn how to operate this equipment I'm charged with operating. I want to get promoted. I'm sitting in a class. Now you got to use this pronoun and you got to remember that this person is like that and that person is like this. And I think it was, I'm not sure whether this was a military situation in this that I'm thinking of right now, but they've done similar things in the military where you get people in a room and you get so-called white people, Tell me about your privilege. Tell me about your supremacy. I mean, what? And then you get, dark-skinned people here. So help us to understand your victimization. What in the world are we doing? First of all, I'm not a victim. Secondly, I don't even know what you mean by white people. Look, all human beings have color, all of us. And that color varies from a light beige, nobody is white, from a light beige to dark brown. Now that's it. That's the entire human spectrum of complexion, except for albinos, of course, who have a skin condition. Light beige to dark brown. Now there are people who have very dark brown skin. It looks black. It's not black. It's very dark brown. Just like at an earlier age, before I had a few gray hairs and fewer of them as total, my hair looked black. My hair was never black. My hair was dark brown. And so what? What does that have to do with anything? And what, you got to teach me what the proper pronouns are to use. And now, don't forget, everybody, Jane will be arriving tomorrow. All of you knew Jane as John before, but John is now Jane. And you would refer to Jane as it and Z. Okay? Everybody say it together. John is Jane and Jane is Z. That's what we're spending our time on? Like this former idiot defense secretary who, as soon as he took over, he had everybody stand down. We have to stand down in order to deal with the issues of gender and race that beset us. You don't need the military standing down, dum-dum. You need it standing up. I mean, thank God they're gone. Oh, man. Thank God they're gone. And look, no more drag queen recruitment ads. How's that? No more. Thank God. I got to think the day may come when somebody will drag that thing out and say, hey, this was a recruitment ad for the Navy, and somebody will say, get out of here. Because if you told somebody 15 years ago that there was a recruitment ad for the Navy, using a drag queen, inviting people to join the Navy, because in the Navy you could become a drag queen. They looked at you and said, what have you been drinking or smoking or snorting? Because clearly something's going on in that little head of yours that's not right. I mean, they would have thought you were crazy. And it's actually happened under the Beijing-Biden administration. I mean, so thank God, all that nightmare, the nightmare is over, and may it never come again. But that's really good news. I am really happy about that. Praise God for it. President Trump has directed the DHS secretary, and Pam Bondi is following suit. Pam Bondi is now going to deny all federal funding from DOJ to sanctuary cities. From now on, these so-called sanctuary cities and sanctuary states as well will no longer receive federal funding. Praise God. President Trump has directed the Department of Homeland Security Secretary to protect our country during the Olympics and any foreign teams coming into our country, to protect our women by not allowing men pretending to be women to enter our country for the purpose of participating in any organized sport. Thank you, Jesus. So if you're a guy, but you're pretending to be a girl, or you're in your deluded mind, you think you are. I was born, I'm simply a woman who was born into a man's body. No, you're simply a nutcase who needs help. You need deliverance from that demon. And you're not coming into our country. Good. You're not coming in. You're not coming in here and playing on a women's sports team and playing against our women. Good. Thank God. Finally, sanity has returned. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh my goodness. You know, folks, this has not made any real big news, but this is something that we need to be aware of. There are a number of states that are apparently, about a dozen of them, looking to charge Anthony Fauci. Now, this presents an interesting legal question because, look, the President of the United States, as a legal matter, now, don't hold me to this absolutely because I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but remember, the President only has federal power. The president does not have the power to order any governor or state legislator or local mayor to do anything. I mean, he really doesn't, unless they're dealing with a federal matter in which there's federal jurisdiction and the person's operating within that jurisdiction. But the president doesn't have the ability to say to a mayor, well, from now on, these are going to be your parking ticket policies. He doesn't have that ability. It's not his constitutional role. It's not his constitutional authority. Does the president have the ability to pardon a person from state charges? I think not. And there are a number of states that are trying to charge Anthony Fauci with fraud, with malfeasance. I think the man ought to be charged with genocide because I think the man's responsible for getting a bunch of people killed through the AIDS epidemic and the COVID epidemic by lying to us. Lied to us about everything, pretty much. I can't think of anything in which he told the truth. Can you? He didn't tell us the truth about the Wuhan lab. He didn't tell us the truth about the nature of this shot. He didn't tell us the truth about masking. He didn't tell us the truth about this social distancing. What did he tell us the truth about? And people following his advice ended up dead. And you got people deprived their loved ones. Look, people live longer when they're surrounded by love. And when you tell sick people that you can no longer see your loved ones, if they're already sick, you are pronouncing a death sentence on them. In some cases. Because they need that love. They need that inspiration. They need that that companionship. They need to be surrounded by people who care about them. And when you isolate them and tell them, well, that can't happen because, we're no longer allowing you to see your sick loved one, your elderly father, mother. Look, good. I am glad to hear it. I think that probably is going to face a constitutional test, whether in fact, I'm really over my time, I got to go, face a constitutional test, whether a presidential pardon inoculates you, forgive the use of the word, no pun intended, inoculates you from state charges. I don't think it does. And I hope they get him and put his butt in jail, because that's where he belongs. Okay, you know what? I'm looking at other things I could bring up, but I better stop now or I'll go way, 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 way over. But listen, God bless each and every one of you. Don't forget, 4 p.m. Eastern Time today is our panel discussion on the family. I hope you will join with us. Oh, and if you haven't seen it yet, go to my Facebook page and watch that. It's really getting a lot of hits. My sermon for President Trump's inauguration, my replacement of that abomination that so-called bishop did to insult and embarrass the President of the United States, and I don't mind adding this, and blaspheming Almighty God. Well, God bless everybody. I love you. I'm praying for you. Pray for me. And you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Hasn't this last election proved that? Yes, it has. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.